Hey everyone, welcome back to Kriss Beauty. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Christina. Some of you call me Kriss, others Tina. Whatever you prefer, girl, that is fine with me. So as you can tell by the title of today's video, we are going to be testing out something pretty damn magical. Or is it? I went ahead and I purchased a dupe for the James Charles palette. Now, if anybody knows me, and I'm talking about really knows me, they know that I'm obsessed. I mean, come on, obsessed with the James Charles Artistry palette. It is one of my go-to palettes. It has every single color that you could ever imagine in the rainbow, and it is my baby. Now, I was scrolling through Amazon a couple weeks back, and I went ahead and came across a rather familiar palette that had pretty much the same color scheme. It is pretty much ripping off the exact James Charles palette. That's what it is. It's not similar, it's not like kind of similar, kind of close, kind of like, no, I'm talking about color for color. It is exactly the James Charles palette. So I received it in this beautiful Amazon Prime package. Okay, shout out to Amazon Prime. 2 days, 1 day, whatever. And I was surprised. But before we get into that, if you are not already subscribed to Kriss Beauty, girl, boy, honey, go ahead and do so. It's okay. It's okay. I know I don't have many videos up, but I have enough for you to binge watch. You can go ahead, bring it all together. If you need any more convincing, if you need a sign, this is it. Go ahead and subscribe to Kriss Beauty, turn on your bell notifications, and let's officially get started. Okay, so as I was saying, this is what it looks like. It is called the Fantasy palette. What I was saying before was that I was surprised at how small it came, okay, because to my knowledge, it was supposed to be just as big as the James Charles palette. Maybe I wasn't paying attention. I mean, this is literally, it's night and day. It is night and day. Okay, this is literally 2 times smaller than this one. So it is called the Fantasy palette, and I'll go ahead and read in the back, you know, just a little bit of a summary. It says in the back that the color never ends with this full spectrum palette of 39 dialed up deeply pigmented shades, honey. With 4 rows of stunning color combos and 1 row of supersized shades, you'll be ready to take out any look you can dream up. So go on and go for it, and don't hold back. Yeah, so that is pretty much what it is. Now it has 39 shades. It says 01 beautiful 1 color. It has an expiration date, it has ingredients, and it's called a changeable magic eyeshadow fantasy palette. Now you all know that the James Charles palette has, hold up. The James Charles palette has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Okay, and the James Charles palette also has 39 palettes. Now I have to admit, I did try filming this before, and I ended up obviously dipping into this palette, so I'm pretty familiar with the shades. I'm not familiar with every single shade and how every single shade works. So what I'll do for this video is I will dip into the shades that I haven't swatched, touched, or anything like that. I probably touched only 4 colors, so I am gonna do a look that has nothing to do with those colors, that have never been touched before. But I'm gonna go ahead and open up this palette and show you the tea. Alright, so this is how it looks. It has sort of this like checker moment, right? It has the fantasy moment, which is pretty similar to this James Charles label on here. This is what it looks like. Girl, get ready. I mean, if this is not a miniature James Charles palette, I don't know what is. This palette I bought for approximately $16.99 on Amazon, and just like everything that I use, I'll go ahead and link it down below, and depending on the review of this palette, you can go ahead and purchase it if you'd like. It is what it is, but this is what it looks like. Now I'm gonna put it right next to the James Charles palette. Just wait. If this is not a baby James Charles palette, then I don't know what is, okay? So this is what the actual palettes look like side by side or on top of each other. exact same things, exact same shades, but do they perform the same? That is the big question, because your looks can match up, but the quality, the corazón, I don't know. So anyways, this is what they look like together. To test this out, of course, I'm going to go ahead and begin with the eyes. I was going to begin with the face, but I just didn't. I'm going to go ahead and use a concealer that I usually use, which is the ColourPop No Filter Concealer. This is in the shade Light 18. I'm gonna go ahead and start off with the eyes. I am gonna go ahead and add some primer just so it can sit for a little bit, but I'm definitely doing the face off of camera because it is all about the eyes. It's about the look. I'm just applying my e.l.f. primer. You know, you guys already know what it is. Oh, my hair looks crazy today. Excuse the, the wet, dry vibe. It's just that, I just came out the shower and I'm not putting my hair up. At least not yet, not until it's fully dried. Alright, so I got my face primer on. I am gonna prime the eyes. Alright, so the eyes are primed. I'm just gonna jump straight into the palette. I already did a lot of talking, you know what I'm saying? So let's just jump into the palettes. So for this video, I'm going to be doing one side the James Charles palette and the other side the Amazon dupe for the James Charles palette. So this side is the real James Charles and this side is the dupe for the James Charles palette. So that means that I'm not going to be using the same brushes that I use on this side, and it's just going to be a fun whirlwind. Now, as far as the colors that I used before, I actually dipped into this warm tone. I dipped into this mauve shade. I definitely touched this shade right here. I touched these two shades, which is the cranberry and the copper, and then I touched this shade. So I think I'm gonna focus more on this part of the palette, and then I'm wearing purple already and pinks, and we're ready for the weekend. Take them to the weekend, girl. So I do want to use more like purples, which is actually perfect because purples are actually harder to create and replicate. So it's going to be actually a true test to how well this works. These purples and the James Charles palette look exactly like the other palette. So I'm going to start off with this fantasy palette first. And again, it's going to be on this side. Again, none of these have been touched besides the few shades that I did use in a previous video. So I'm actually going to start off with a fluffy brush, and I'm going to dip into this really light pink here. Now, it might not actually show up because, light colors like this and the white and this beige, they don't usually show up on camera or in person, really. So I'm not too worried about it, but I'm going to start off with this light pink shade right here. Now, just dipping into it, it does have a little bit of fallout, but it's not too crazy. So this side is the fantasy palette. So I'm just basically gonna push this into the crease. It's showing up a little bit of something. It actually is showing up a little bit. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but it's showing up something. So again, I'm just going and pushing that into the crease, using it as my transition shade. And now in the James Charles palette, I'm gonna use this pink shade, and I'll put up all the names of each of them on screen because and of course I'm using different brushes for each side. So I'm gonna take another fluffy brush, a little bit of fallout on that one, but it's not enough to even show because it's barely nothing. And again, we are going to push into the crease. I don't even think I've ever used this shade in the James Charles palette, to be honest, but it is showing up just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going on to my third layer, which is exactly what I did on the other side. I can say that this shade, both shades are showing up, and it's not something that I'm really critiquing so hard because it's just a transition shade. Okay, so far I could say that they look pretty damn similar. I'm gonna move on to something a little bit more extra though. So I'm going to take this shade right here, which is a beautiful magenta shade, and I'm using the fantasy palette first. Taking the same fluffy brush, again a little bit of fallout, just as much as the light pink, and we're gonna pack that right on top. Oh girl, honey, we're gonna pack this right on top of that transition shade. The exact same thing, just sweeping back and forth. It's legit blending like a freaking dream. So that's how that looks so far. And then going into the James Charles palette, the shade that I actually dug my freaking nail into. Same fluffy brush for this side. A little bit more kickback than the other magenta for sure. But again, it's not a big deal. So again, I'm going to place that into the crease. As far as this magenta shade, I can say that it is a little bit patchy. It's nothing that's like too crazy, but it is a little patchy. It takes a little bit more blending. I would say that this shade of magenta is just a tiny bit more pink. I would say so far that they're both just as pigmented as each other. Okay, so I'm actually gonna add this purple a little bit in the crease because I do want to do like a little cut crease action. I haven't done that in so long. And I'm taking a Morphe M433 brush. So just right below that shade that we used earlier, but a little bit more precise. So it's really looking good so far, or at least coming together in my mind. So I'm gonna take a different Morphe M433 brush, and I'm taking this lighter purple shade right here. Okay, I could say this purple shade is a little bit harder to pick up in the James Charles palette for some weird reason, but that can be because I've had this palette for just like a little while. Definitely there's a really big difference in applying the actual shade in a good way. The other purple that I used was a little bit harder in the other palettes, but this is like, it's showing up, she's showing out, she's ready for the weekend, she's ready for us to take her to the weekend for sure. I'm just gonna pick it up one more time. Not that I really need to because she's showing up, she's showing out. She's letting us know like, honey, the bills are paid on time. I'm just blending her back and forth. One thing I can say though about the James Charles palette is that I'm having a little bit of a harder time blending. I'm not sure why. They seem to just be like really sticking harder, which I remember having a hard time using the James Charles palette because I haven't used it in so long. It's really nothing to worry about. It's just an observation. I'm gonna use my fluffy brush and just blend those two together. I just want to comment that I feel like this side is already looking a little bit more pigmented than this side. I feel like she's clocking out a little early. She got a little bit too excited about the weekend and she's out. So I'm just gonna build this up a little bit more. Alright, we're gonna move on. We are going to move on, and I'm just gonna cut the crease really quickly on both sides. Alright, so I'm just using one brush for this part because it's not that serious. I'm using my Maybelline Instant Age Rewind because it's like that thicker formula. And I'm using a Morphe M421 brush. Wow, I haven't done this in so long. I feel so shaky. I mean, it doesn't have to be precise because I'm putting down a matte shade, but still. Okay, so I cut the crease. I kind of left bare space at the end because I kind of want to put a different type of purple. But as far as the actual lid, I do want to put a hot pink, which I don't do, you know, but it's the weekend, so I do want to dip into this hot pink in the Fantasy palette and the James Charles palette. So for the Fantasy palette, I am taking a different concealer brush. Oh, okay. And I'm just going to pack that on the lid, which by the way, I never do a matte look, and I think today is all matte. Ooh, there's a little bit of fallout, nothing severe. Okay, and this is the third time that I'm going in with this, which is pretty normal because you're picking it up on a concealer brush. It's not always the easiest. Alright, I'm gonna try to pick this up with my actual finger just to go over a little bit because it seems to be losing pigmentation with the concealer brush. I mean, this pink is not as pigmented as I would like it to be. It is a little bit patchy, and you kind of really have to build it up to get like to full or even decent pigmentation. So I'm not crazy about the pink, I'm not gonna lie, but I am gonna move on to this hot pink in the James Charles palette, which I believe is called Pinkity Drinkity. Okay, so I'm taking a different concealer brush. Ooh, 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 ooh. This picked up a lot. Hopefully it performed. I just want you to come here. Do you see what I see, or is it just me? Do you see what I see? What the I mean, what's in this formula? I don't understand. There's no comparison. That's it. The video's over. The video's over because the pink in that and the pink in that, it's not even night and day. Like, there's no, like, they don't even look like each other. The pigmentation is there, honey. And I did try to pick up enough because of this side. I was kind of like afraid, but like I'm still on number 1 right here. Like, I haven't picked up anymore. I just gotta pick up a little bit more, but she's there. She came correct. She didn't come to play. She came fully prepared, and she needs no help. She's independent. She pays all her bills on her own on time. She got more together than me. I just want you to see. These are now 2 different eye looks. So I'm gonna have to build this side up like way more because I kind of actually like, this is what I was looking for. I was looking for this big pop of pink. I mean, there is a little bit of fallout. We don't care about her though. We're not looking for her. We're not checking for that. So I'm gonna take a different concealer brush because maybe, you know, I don't know, maybe it's the concealer brush that I use is a little bit thick. So I'm gonna take a little bit of like that angled brush, and I'm gonna dip back into the Fantasy palette and really try to build her. So I'm digging, and we're gonna try to like build her up just a little bit more. No, a lot more. I mean, it's not a bad pink, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to like play her. It's not really like the best comparison to like the James Charles side. It shouldn't take that much effort, to be honest with you. Amazon palette or not, like, just come all the way through when I ask you to. I shouldn't have to ask you twice. But anyways, moving on, we built her up as much as we could. It's not there like I want it to be. But we're gonna move on to applying these 2 purples right here, which is the one that I used before, like in the crease. And then this little bit of a darker purple, and we're using those 2 shades to like close it in. We're taking the Morphe M433 brush, and I'm just mixing those 2. And we're starting with this side because she needs the most love, the most help. We just want to hold her tight, let her know that she's still loved. I'm taking a little more of that darker shade than anything. The dark purple is a little bit hard to work with. I find myself building it up a gazillion times, which I'm really surprised about. I really am, because when I first used this palette, it was really super buttery, super like easy to blend. So I'm surprised that I'm having a different experience with like the purple shades. But as I said, the purples are the true testament to time. So I am gonna take these 2 shades right here in the James Charles palette with the different Morphe M433 brush, and we're gonna do the same on this side. Same techniques, I'm just patting and sort of like very lightly shading, just because you want those 2 to blend. It's definitely more pigmented. It's a lot easier to blend. The purple and the pink in this palette are like, they are just win-win. But I'm just gonna go ahead and save the final thoughts for the end, honey, because we got a lot to talk about. Okay, so I think as far as the eyes, I do want to just hold on a little bit. Let me just add a little bit of liner really quickly. Alright, so I'm not doing like a winged liner. I just really want to line the lash line. So I do want to add lashes and all that good stuff, but I'm going to apply my face off of camera. I'm going to apply my brows off of camera, like literally just pretty much finish up everything besides the highlight and the lips. So I will be right back, and then I'll give you my final thoughts on if this Amazon dupe for the James Charles palette is really it. I will be right back. Alright you guys, so I had to put up the hair, you know, the mane. I went ahead and I finished up the eyes. I have these crazy lashes on that are like, not really like cooperating. But anyways, I finished up the eyes, the eyebrows, the face. Nothing really new there, you know, but I will link everything that I use down below, including this palette. But before I get into my final thoughts about it, I do want to highlight. So for a highlight color, I do want to dip into this like pinkish peach shimmer shade right here. I'm gonna use my highlighting brush, which I'm actually gonna have to clean off to use a James Charles palette because I don't got 2 of these on hand. A lot of fallout, and I do want to use this as a cute little highlight moment. By the way, I have like a ton of texture on my face. I'm having a really bad eczema outbreak right now. It's not doing good right now, which I don't recommend. You know, you highlight your problem areas, but that's what we're gonna do because Kriss Beauty is not only about beauty over here. It's about, you know, feeling one with yourself.
Period! 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 Period!
So I'm gonna highlight the forehead real quick. I would think this is a great highlight shade. I mean, it's just very dewy. And I am cleaning off that brush. I'll go into the exact shade in the James Charles palette, which is this beautiful pinky shimmer. This one is a little bit more powdery than it is shimmery. Ooh, yeah, definitely more powdery, but just as blinding. I mean, if not more blinding. Super, super, super pigmented. Adding a little to the brow bone. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the Wet n Wild lip gloss. I actually have never really worn this out, just because I love lip gloss, but I'm not really a colored lip gloss type of person. But this is called Chick Got Real, like got real. This is what the final look looks like. Let me just go ahead and spray it on my face. Alright, so let's get down to the real tea. The real reason why you're here. You probably skipped over. I would too. No, I wouldn't. Don't do that. That's so disrespectful. Does this fantasy palette, is it an Amazon dupe for the James Charles palette? That's the real question, right? I think it's a matter of opinion, and I'll tell you why. These shades here are super pigmented. They blend really well. These pens are super small, and that might not be a problem for some people. Some people, especially because this is half the cost of the James Charles palette, they might think like, okay, that's a win. Like, I like a small on-the-go palette. Not gonna lie, that was my first thought initially when I seen this palette, when I first used this palette. The amount of times that you have to go back in to really build it up to what the James Charles palette can deliver. I mean, are you really saving money? I don't know. Like I said, that's really up for debate. That's really up to the buyer. I mean, I'm not really here to convince or otherwise. I'm just really here to give you the tea. They blend beautifully. They are pigmented. Are they as pigmented as the James Charles palette? They can be after being built up maybe 3 or 4 times. Are they pigmented alone? Not in comparison to the James Charles palette? Absolutely. I do think it's a great palette. Is it something that I'll definitely use again? Maybe if I break the James Charles palette, if I lose it. But yeah, those are like my final thoughts on this palette. You guys know that I love the James Charles palette. Overall, are there some shades that are pretty hard to blend? Absolutely. No palette is really perfect, but I am obsessed with the James Charles palette. I love that it's so big. It's a little hard to hold sometimes. Absolutely. Overall, I would say that this fantasy palette is a pretty close dupe to the James Charles palette. It's $17 on Amazon, and it does perform, it does deliver. I do like the palette, and if we're comparing it to the James Charles palette, I would say out of 10, it's probably an 8 or a 7.5. Just a disclaimer, I mean, as far as dupes, they can be pretty hard to match up. They can be hard to explain because there's a difference between something being a dupe which is like similar to a specific product that's usually more expensive, and it being the exact copycat of something. I think that products like the James Charles palette or any product, it could sort of be like a slap in the face for someone to completely rip off your ideas and have it out there for way less. And I really do respect creators and the time and effort that they put into it. So like I said, this is not a go out and get this palette. It really is up to you. I think that it really held up to what it was trying to do, but again, it's up to the buyer. It really does depend on you. I personally would choose a James Charles palette over this palette just because of the pigmentation and just because I like supporting an actual brand. Like I said, the copycat of something can be just a little bit shady, you know, a little bit disrespectful, a little bit out of pocket, but overall it's a dupe. If the James Charles is something that you really can't afford right now, this is a great dupe for the James Charles palette, point blank period. Wrapping up this video, I do want to thank you so much if you got to the end of this video. There's been a lot of talking, a lot of observing, and I really appreciate you guys for supporting Kriss Beauty as always. I do want to make this sort of into like a series, so if you guys have two palettes that you want me to compare, an expensive one versus an Amazon one, I would love to make this into an Amazon dupe series. So go ahead and comment that down below. If you love today's look, give me a thumbs up, give me a subscribe, turn on your bell notifications, and let me know how you feel about dupes. So I'm gonna go ahead and close out this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye guys.